Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast, where we're sharing stories and advice from the entrepreneurs, business executives, and community leaders, sparking the rise of the Greater Bentonville Area, which represents one of the fastest growing and most dynamic cities and economies in the United States, and is nestled in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas in the heartland of America. Hi, I'm your host, James Bell, and today I am thrilled to welcome my friend and creative collaborator, Bryan Fittin, to the hot seat. Bryan is the innovative mind behind Go Rogue X, and he is not only an entrepreneur at heart, but also a creative force, hosting the engaging Rogue Creators podcast. His journey from a dynamic career in sales and development to founding a company at the crossroads of creativity and business provides a unique perspective on what it takes to thrive in today's fast-paced, ever-evolving business landscape. Bryan's multifaceted role as a leader, mentor, and community influencer makes him a key player in shaping the entrepreneurial and creative spirit of the Greater Bentonville Area. Bryan, welcome to the Bentonville Beacon podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think that's my new LinkedIn bio. Can you send that over? That was phenomenal. I love that.
It right over.
It's like, wow, I sound great. That's fantastic. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Well, it's great to finally have you on this show.
Welcome to the studio.
Yeah, right. We were welcome to your house.
Yeah,
or to your studio.
Yeah.
It's a surprise that we haven't done this before now.
Which is okay. We were talking about it's like we've talked about it a few times, right? Yeah. But it didn't. You've had some phenomenal guests on the show, and it was always like, well, I can hop in whenever you need me. But you still have a whole lineup of guests, so I'm very honored to be not just the backup. I'm here. So
well, thanks for being here. Well, with that said, Bryan, without getting into Go Rogue X, will you share about yourself and what the audience should know about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I spent 15 years in the corporate world. And so for me, this entrepreneurial journey feels like it started a long time ago when I was a kid, really. And I grew up with parents that had small businesses, but really just being able to kind of dream. I'm a big dreamer, big goals, big visionary guy. And so, for me, growing up in Arkansas and then working in the corporate world, I was able to travel around the country a little bit and get out of Arkansas to see what the rest of the country looks like, and then ultimately got a job to come back here actually to work with Walmart and the vendor community, and then essentially settled down. Wife, we have 4 kids total. We have 2 bio and 2 adopted, so we're adopted family, foster care. We have an amazing community there of support, but enjoy living. Rogers, it's strange, only in Northwest Arkansas here can we live in Rogers but be in the city limits of Cave Springs but have a Bentonville school district. And so I'm not sure exactly where all of our taxes go and what happens there, but it's a great community, great place to live, and have loved it since 2009, 2010.
That's great.
Back. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it all works out. I mean, really, in reality, Northwest Arkansas is the city. Mm-hmm. The rest of these towns are really the neighborhoods. And it is funny to see, you live, let's see. You have a Rogers address, you said?
Yeah.
Live in Cave Springs. Kids go to school in Bentonville. Yeah, that's totally normal.
Exactly.
Happens everywhere else in the country.
And it's all and then the studio it's in Bentonville. And so everything's like 5 minutes from our house. So 5 minutes to school, 5 minutes to the studio, 5 minutes to anything. It's phenomenal, That's great. Yeah.
Will you share with us about your journey founding Go Rogue X and what motivated you to start this venture?
Well, I think I always wanted to do something bigger than whatever it was, whatever I was doing. It seems like I can never be content. And so in the corporate world, I started out really young, working my way through college. I had 3 jobs while I was in college, and found that I just wanted to do more. And so when I landed in the corporate world, I actually got a promotion at 21 years of age and was in the cellular world, so Verizon. And so they moved me out east to actually manage a store. So I was helping with billing conversions and doing some stuff. Crazy stuff. I think back now, I'm like, 21-year-olds. I was like, why in the world did they trust a 21-year-old kid, to do all this stuff? And so for me, having that drive and that even just getting that responsibility, I took it very seriously. And I was managing people who were twice my age. The closest person to my age was, I think, 10 years still older than me. And so learning really quick, like how to be a good leader in those situations, being young and also having a drive to climb the corporate ladder. And so I then moved around a few other times and just took promotions. And what happened though is while I was doing that, I obviously, was moving around. And so I wanted to have a hobby. And so had some friends in photography. And so I actually started doing photography on the side just as a hobby. And then how it always happens is somebody says, hey, do you take pictures for, graduates and seniors and families and all the things? And I was like, no, but I can figure it out. And then, of course, I jumped into like, well, how can I make money at this? Because that was, you monetize everything. So the hobby quickly turned into a business. And so it was a lot of fun. I worked with a lot of bands and musicians and stuff like that. That's kind of where my heart was. Cool. And so I had some fun with that. And then eventually, fast forward a few years, my wife was actually wanting to do a podcast. We were, like I said, adoptive family. And so she was saying that what she was finding is there wasn't a lot of support for adoptive moms. Specifically, there was for adoptive families and a lot of resources and stuff like that, but not for adoptive moms. And I had done some podcasting before, and then invested in basically running her, producing her show. And that eventually led, she crushed it. I'm always a guy on the backside of this saying, I wish that I had her talent, because she grew the show to 120,000 downloads, 7 seasons, some celebrity guests. Like she just did some amazing things with it. But I learned a lot through that process. And so by doing that, learning how to market a show and grow it, and I was doing all of the back end stuff, really helped me be able to see how could we do this and translate this to the business world? And so just like it happens, we have several people say, hey, I know you have your own podcast. Your wife has a podcast. Could you do a podcast for us? And so combining the photography, video elements, as well as the audio. I'm not an audio engineer. Luckily, we have some amazing people that work at Go Rogue that do this now way better than I ever started out doing it. But that eventually led to what Go Rogue is now, combination of all those things. And officially, so that was 2019. So officially, we'll have our 5-year anniversary this week. Of being a company. And so it was kind of weird. I realized that this morning. Somebody's like, how long have you been in business? And I was like, 5 years this week.
That's great.
So crazy. So here we are. Yeah.
Congratulations. I mean, as you know, the vast majority of businesses do not make it to 5 years.
This is that milestone.
Much less 2 or 3. That is a really important milestone.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you're now out of the club of the 65%, though. Well, for one more week, you're still in the club of the 65% of businesses that create. Let me restate that. The 5-year or less businesses that create 65% of all net new jobs year over year. That's been going on for decades. But that's okay. You're into the next club, the 5 to 9. Keep growing.
Moving on. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you are also the host of the Rogue Creators podcast.
Yes.
Will you talk about that part of your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's always the mechanic that doesn't work on his own car, and it's the cobbler that doesn't, fix his kid's shoes or whatever the saying is. That's kind of how it's felt for us. Is we don't promote ourselves well. We don't market ourselves well, even though that's what we do for other companies, right? And so Rogue Creators actually came out of a couple different things. So originally it was called the Go Rogue podcast that I started back in 2014 with a friend of mine. We interviewed a lot of people in the tech space here in Northwest Arkansas. That's cool. Like Michael Palladino, Rev Unit, trying to think of some other names, Rick West, a field agent. So some people in that space, because I really wanted to get into the entrepreneurial system and just learn about it from these people. And so really it's that podcast has transformed through the years into really interviewing interesting people who are creators. So that could be podcast hosts, that could be a photographer, a videographer, it could be anybody who's creating anything. And so it's a fun, it's had its it's had its different variations through the years. So I think that's what's hard is constantly relaunching a new the same show, but changing it up a little bit. But we've had a lot of fun with it, and have really explored what our team is capable of. And so we kind of test theories out on our own marketing before we say to our clients, hey, we think this could actually work for you guys. And so it's been a lot of fun, but yeah, it's we're going to be actually launching again the next season. Has a little bit a broader scope as well, but it's a more selfish desire for me to be around other creatives and have those conversations, and really create a community and a network of people, because a lot of times what happens is, especially creators, is we get this like silo mentality.
That's right.
It's like, as a photographer, we get this comparison syndrome, and so what happens is they're doing it better than I am. Well, I can be better than that. I don't want to share my secrets. And that's just not a way of growing. You have to collaborate to grow. And so for me, it's how can I get around creatives, having fun conversations with them, get to know them, as well as their processes, how they do things. And then also doing kind of portfolio reviews. So getting to showcase some of their work and what they're proud of as well. That's cool.
So, well, okay. In the, with your need to always do more, I have to ask then, beyond the podcast, then are you going to create a network of creators?
It's already, it's already in the works. We do a meetup. It's going to actually be quarterly now, but it's called Row Creators. So excellent. Again, there's some similarities with that, but a lot of it was to showcase our space. We have an awesome space. We love our studio, and want to bring more creators into that. And so it's also highlighting people in the community. And our last one was about 3 months ago. We had over 50 people. I kind of expected it just to be something small, and man, we had people show up, and it was great. We had some great sponsors as well, and it was just a great time of people getting to know each other. And now we have people asking us all the time, when are you guys going to do that again? What's going to happen? When's the next one? Even had some other sponsors come on that heard about it that say, hey, we want to sponsor the next one, which is super encouraging. Yeah. And so that is something specifically for Bentonville, Northwest Arkansas in general, is a great place to be because of that. Like, the community here wants to support each other. They want to be around each other. And so building that community, it's already happening. That's kind of the cart before the horse type situation, where most people are trying to create a community, but ours has kind of come out of that. And so it's been, again, really encouraging.
Yeah, I popped into that last one for a few minutes. It was really only a few minutes, maybe 15.
Yeah.
And I think the garage door was open. People were overflowing outside. And by the way, to be clear, this is the Go Rogue studio.
Yeah, so, we're in it right now.
Yeah, we're in that studio, so it is a fabulous space, and I really enjoy doing the podcast here, and I'm really glad to have you as collaborators and the folks behind the scene. Yeah. Doing audio and doing AV are phenomenal as well. You're absolutely correct.
That's what I always tell people too. It's less about me. I've been in the seat of trying to hire people who are way more talented, way more gifted. So shout out to Jacob Carpenter, who's our audio engineer. Yeah. He's going to be editing this. And so big piece of our team. We love him, as well as Lane Sailing, head of our production. Mm-hmm. He just, anything that you see from the outside, that's him and his team that are creating that. And so they do a phenomenal job as well. And so, couldn't happen without, I don't do anything, James, for your show. I just get to come in and have some fun with you and talk strategy and stuff. But man, they are the ones that do it. And we're proud of what we create here. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they do such a phenomenal job that people ask me all the time, how do you get such great quality video? And I'm like, I'm not doing that myself. Yeah. That is definitely, there's an amazing team at Go Rogue that does that. Can you talk about how your experiences in larger companies and your experience and background in sales and business development, how that has translated to your approach, your leadership skills at Go Rogue, and if that has changed over the past few years? How has that changed?
Man, it's a different feeling when you are managing a team. I had roughly 38 people. I had my largest that I was managing. I had an operations team and a management team in the corporate world, compared to running your own business. Let me just say it's a completely different world. And so you think, well, if this was my company, I'd be doing it this way and I'd be changing this stuff. But when it's on your shoulders, it's a different feeling. And so I would say that I could not be doing what I'm doing right now without my corporate training and all the things that I've done and the programs and stuff that I've run. And it really did benefit me quite a bit to be able to launch Go Rogue and then be able to put some foundational structural pieces that really needed to play. And that's what's hard when I talk to younger entrepreneurs that are like wanting to go out and start their businesses. And I'm like, well, here are 15 different things that you need to have set in place, things that you just don't think of, the boring stuff, the stuff that you don't, you want to go out and just run the business and create, whatever the product or service is, but you don't think about the foundational things that can get you in the end, if you don't have proper things set up like insurance and handbooks and, what do we do in this situation? And so there's a lot of that for me, from a leadership style too. I mean, I had some great leaders in the corporate world. And I had some not great leaders. And so you pick up
that one.
Yeah, you pick up on like, I don't want to be like that, but I also want to be like this. And so I would say that, I wouldn't change my time in the corporate world. I think it was great. I actually worked my way up to the job that I really wanted. So it was bittersweet leaving. It was really hard because I loved that boss at the time, the VP. I made a name for myself within that organization and I'd done all the things I wanted to do. So leaving didn't make sense to anybody, even to me at the time, but it was a time to jump and do this full time. And I knew, and ideally, actually, later on, it's the business changed, the business needs change, and some of that team was dispersed. And so my role wasn't even there anymore after a couple of years after I left. So that kind of validated the time that I needed to jump. So, but it's been a great experience. I wouldn't trade any of it.
That's cool. I think in many ways my experience is like yours, that I've spent time in corporate, done startups. Now I'm an economic developer, and I have a hard time sitting still, and I'm always looking for like what's better about either what I'm doing or something else that I would do. You said some of the things that I made myself some notes here, trying to figure out how I was going to jump from there to here, but building a foundation under your business and understanding the business context matters a lot, and it's so helpful. And you're right, it's hard to help folks who don't have that experience understand how helpful that could be. And yet the corporate world ill prepares you to run a brand new business.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
It's just not the same. But I too remember, in fact, I'll say that, sort of climbing the corporate ladder, doing things in sort of corporate, and then feeling like I needed to do it again. That was my new at once. And I went to another place to do it again. It didn't feel the same. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's about the point where I started learning I was actually an entrepreneur and I need to go out and build something. But it is a different world.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But you can learn so much.
Yeah.
To carry over to here. How has being in Bentonville impacted the growth and the direction of Go Rogue?
We are in such a unique place. It is just, it seems like it sorry, I'm speechless to what Bentonville is. I was about to say, it's one of those things where every single day there's something new that I'm discovering. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Oh, they tore that building down, and what is going in over here? And there's all of that outside of just the community. I would say that having connections within, whether that's, people I've met at networking groups, or I'm in, even church or our foster community or the adoption community or something like that, there's always somebody that's connected to somebody else. And then that has helped fuel the growth of this, because we didn't set out to really do anything specifically in the area. So we were a remote company for a long time that just had offices. So most of our clients are national clients. And so it was interesting whenever we had that need, people would come to us and say, hey, can you guys come film? Can you record a podcast locally? Whatever it was. And it's like, yeah, we can do that, And so that's really how this thing kind of took off. And so it's interesting because I always tell people, especially if you're in the retail world in general, whether you are specifically for, working for Walmart or you're just supporting or whatever it is, it's crazy how, I have neighbors that are vendors. We have, people like that. And so it's it's just a different experience that so many people outside the area are trying to, either figure out how to get into Walmart or whatever else. And so, I will say we've done some work for a lot of vendors and for Walmart specifically, and really proud of that work. But that was not what we set out to do. But just being here, it just kind of happens. You just kind of, become the we want to obviously be the go-to name for what we're doing and what we're producing. But it is awesome how it just kind of naturally happens because we're in the community. We're a part of it. We're in these conversations with people. We're helping. We're volunteering. We're doing all those things, and it just naturally business kind of develops out of that.
There is a lot of natural development, but what I think I just heard was when you don't know where to go, you need to go to, and that go to is Go Rogue.
That's right. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you. That was a good summary.
That's perfect. Well, hey, Bentonville is rapidly growing and evolving. In your experience, I guess sort of a add-on to the previous question is, how does this environment foster creativity and innovation in your work?
Yeah, well, I think just with the investments of the Waltons in general, obviously with the technology side of things, as well as, the mountain biking, the biking community in general, it is just, I would say, just being around and being in these conversations and hearing them and what you're seeing. It only encourages you to do more and to be a part of that. And so this community is very alive. Bentonville is very alive. And that's what you walk into this. It's my hometown. I love it to death, but it feels very dated when I go back, and it's like, oh yeah, that you're 10 years behind essentially. And so it feels good to come back up here and be like, oh, I'm home here. And there is just innovation happening all the time. And so even from our side of things, I think just finding our place within, in the business world, in serving this community and what can we do and do it well. I think that there are just always opportunities that we can improve, and seeing what exactly is happening in this space and being right down the street from Up Summit, at Bentonville. Literally I get to watch game composites take off out of my office there. I see them out the window. And it's like, there's so many things that are just happening that it only naturally encourages you just being here. Just even if you're not doing anything, just being in the same, it feels like you're in the same room all the time with amazing things that are going on here.
Yeah. If you're a creative and you're an innovator and your slogan is do more.
Yeah.
You couldn't find a more perfect place. I'm with you. I've lived in some places where the place was pretty static, but I've also lived in a lot of places where there was new stuff, but the place didn't feel new.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like the culture was one where you were actually moving forward. It just felt like there was a new thing for the sake of being a new thing. Yeah. And new stuff here is really intentional and purposeful and is moving us in a direction that's really neat to watch play out.
Absolutely.
What do you think makes the Greater Bentonville area stand out for entrepreneurs and creators? I feel like we've answered part of this question, but go further.
Yeah, no, one, architecture and art in general, just even the Ledger being one of those. Crystal Bridges is the go-to. It's crazy to me. We were talking the other day with my wife of just saying, like, it's just nuts that we can go to this place and then we can go, it's 10 minutes from our house, like whatever it is. It's 10 minutes, 5 minutes away from us right now. And that's just something that you start to take for granted. And so I have to pull back a little bit and say, no, this is a great place to be here, or a great place to live. And so for me, it is mainly the architecture, the art, you really start to see that stuff. And that is very inspiring, to see what people are building and creating. And I would have never thought there would have been a bikeable building. Like, that's just a concept that doesn't make any sense to me. And it's here. And it's like, wow. And so I draw a lot of inspiration for that, especially I'm not a designer, and it's weird to call myself a creator or anything like that but I can appreciate, when somebody does something different. And I'm like, that took guts to be able to step out and say, hey, I think we should do a building that we can ride our bikes all the way to the top. Like, that's just something that's just crazy to me. And that inspires me to think, what is something that I can kind of push the limits on a little bit more too.
Yeah. Talk about pushing the limits. So the Ledger building, I was just there before I came over here, and I'm there several days a week, but I saw I forget where the article was recently. It listed 6 buildings around the world that were
the Forbes article.
the Forbes article.
Yeah, it was great.
Right. It was in that article, and they called it a crazy idea. They said there's this crazy idea, but they did it and they built it, and look what's happening. And you go in there and everybody's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bustling place. There's still some floors of the building that aren't finished that they're still building out. And it's going to just continue to get more amazing with the people that are in and out of that building all the time. But that's the kind of stuff that happens in Bentonville. And I would encourage, the listeners or the viewers to go out and find that episode. There is an episode of the Bentonville Beacon podcast, I think maybe even shortly before the building opened, or it had just opened. With Josh Kyles, who is the developer. And one of the things that struck me that he said in that episode that I thought was neat was he said, I want somebody to come along and build something better.
Yeah.
Because then I'm going to build the next better thing. Right. He went all over the world and took folks all over the world, a team all over the world, to find the best of the best and figure out what wasn't combined together in a building that should be. And then on top of that said, I'm going to build the world's first bikeable building, and did it right here.
That's crazy.
It's really cool.
Super talented.
This next question, the podcast well enough to know what's coming. I'm going to ask you the trademark question of the show. What's something that happened where you look back at it and you're like, well, that's a hashtag because Bentonville moment. It could only happen here, or maybe describes the essence of our community. So when you asked me to be on the show, that was the one question I was thinking. I was like, what is this? What's a story? Because I was going through quite a few, and I don't know that I necessarily have a very specific one, just because I've kind of alluded to quite a bit of it, which is, your community, your people that we've bumped into. We were in foster care adoptive training up here, and the people next to us. One is an executive at Kraft Heinz. And so it's like one of those things, we become friends and good texting buddies and go hang out and grab a drink or whatever. It's just crazy because that opportunity would have never happened, right, without being here. I think the secondary piece is just only in Bentonville would you randomly see celebrities, which is so weird, of just who's in town, that could be for Walmart or for another event or something like that. And so seeing like John Cena or somebody downtown or something, it's like, what in the world is happening right now? And it is only because being in Bentonville, but I think I've had to, even with myself, some of my goals this year is to be out to the coffee shops that are around here, because the people that you bump into that I haven't seen in a long time, or just the random people that are in town for whatever event, that can only happen here. That is a very specific thing. The movie that was filmed for X&A and, at X&A, the Meg Ryan. And just having the conversation with the X&A folks. And that was a great episode with Andrew, where he talked about that too. I'm just things that just random stuff like that is just so cool that happens here. That doesn't happen anywhere else. There's nobody else I know, even friends who, in New Jersey, New York, and something like that, just random things that are happening here that are not happening elsewhere, crazy. You're not wrong. I mean, you are as likely to run into John Cena as you are Paris Hilton, Snoop Dogg, Harrison Ford. Just go down the list, and it is remarkable how many of these folks are. Isn't that accessible? Which is what's crazy, is they are very accessible in that sense, or even just famous in our world, Bentonville people that are up in corporations and stuff. And I remember running into Mike Duke one time, former CEO of Walmart, and so it was just one of those that he's just a great guy, and we just started talking, kind of bumped into each other, started talking to each other, and I was like, oh, you're Mike Duke, okay. This is now strange to me, but again, that's the kind of stuff that everybody has a mentality that. Very accessible, very friendly, and I really hope that doesn't change. I don't see it changing, but that is something that is just phenomenal about living here. Accessible, friendly, and frankly, normal people. That's what I've discovered. Exactly. It's remarkable. Looking toward the future, what's next for Go Rug? Yeah, a lot of conversations around that. It's been, I think once you pivot, obviously, within the business and the business needs and the needs of the market.
I would say for us, it's a really great opportunity right now because content creation is blowing up. I think people see the need for that. We pride ourselves in doing it well, and we want to stay ahead of the trends as well. And so for Go Rogue Studio specifically, our local presence, I mentioned Lane before, but he's head of our production, and he has some phenomenal ideas about where to take what we're doing here locally. So that's some additional website video packages, some content creation, some retainer packages where you can come in our studio, create more content, more than just a podcast. Podcasting won't go away, but being able to go out on location. Do a lot more, crafting a great story, a brand film. We've done quite a few of those this last year, and it just seems to be what the market's needing, as well as when you hire great people. I don't want to hold them back. I was telling Lane the other day, we had a meeting. I was like, how can I get out of your way? Like, I just want you just to go and create and do all the things, because I don't want to be holding our company back because of, just me being in the way or bottlenecking, whatever it is. And so a lot of that's going to be happening for us here in the future, as well as, so for me personally, focusing on a lot more of working with leadership and creating some great leadership content specifically for LinkedIn. And so that is something that we have basically a new leadership content package that can be done remotely. And so I have a mastermind group, and we're all over the US, and a lot of them are creating content, but they don't know specifically what is engaging on LinkedIn. And a lot of people have very important messages to tell. Sure. And I want to help leaders be able to make, entertaining and impactful content. And it's basically taking the formula we've already developed and just putting it into that box and being able to help that leadership team expand their message. So it's exciting stuff. And again, it's a different direction than what we've done in the past, but we already have some clients who are utilizing those products. And a lot of our products come out of conversations with our clients. They're like, hey, do you guys do this? And it's like, well, no, but we can figure that out. And we all of a sudden it's a phenomenal product that serves a need and solves a problem. And we want to continue to develop and innovate. And that is the future plan right now.
And you're helping people stay on the edge, stay on the future. I can think of, as this place rapidly evolves and grows, and as we live in dog years here, I can think of several organizations that are, thinking through, okay, what's the next 3 years look like? So hard to see. Hard
to see 10 years, let alone
because
3,
it just changes so fast, right? And can see a number of organizations that perhaps could take advantage of these services.
Yeah.
To give you an idea of how dog years we live here in Bentonville.
Yeah.
We talked to audience about this one. Is like, when a city does planning, they're thinking about, and they put together the plans that you might see that are often named things like somewhere forward or go there, or whatever the name of their plan is. Those plans are meant to last 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
We did our last one here in Bentonville in 2018. To give you an idea of the dog years we live in, we are now going through that process here. It started last year in 2023. So 5 years later, that 15, 20-year plan is off the shelf and being rewritten and really even looked at more deeply than it was then. In fact, I want to take this opportunity. If you're listening and you're in Bentonville or Northwest Arkansas, or you're even thinking about coming here, you should go to planbentonville.com right now and answer the survey that's there. Thousands of people have already responded to it, but we need all the voices across the entire spectrum, whether they're a 10-year-old or a 90-year-old or all at points in between. We need everybody's perspective on what they want Bentonville to look like and feel in the next 15 to 20 years, because this plan is very much going to drive that.
Yeah. And
perhaps 5 years from now, we'll have to dust it off and
I hope so.
Do it again.
That'd be great. Yeah.
We give some advice to the audience, especially say the budding entrepreneurs out there who maybe already have significant business experience, right? And the question, I guess, is this: what's the importance of risk taking and making new connections and really just putting yourself out there in navigating the challenges of building a business, especially in a dynamic environment like we have here in Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas?
Yeah. That's a deep one, James. That's if I'm like, I can tell you all the things. Yeah. No, I can tell you all the things not to do. Yeah,
Me too.
I'm always available if somebody, I'll put that out there too. Like, please contact me if you do have questions. Cause again, I don't know that I'm the best at giving the best advice. Again, I can always tell you what not to do, but, I would say from somebody who is looking at starting a business, one is, find your audience, find exactly who you're going to serve. And go into with that mindset of bringing that value. And so if you can bring value to whoever's in your market, make sure that that they have the money to buy and that they want to buy the thing too. You have a lot of great guests who are, startups or VC backed or whatever it is. And it's just so crazy to me that revenue is not necessarily the forefront. So, I mean, I've bootstrapped this, not taking any investment. And so it's been a journey of like, we have to sell something.
That's right.
And so, and I had, I think Jeff Sanders, he's like, if nobody sells anything, nothing's going to happen. So somebody has to sell something to make something happen. And so I would say, become a very good salesman up front, a salesperson in general. Make sure that you can sell it because everything else happens on the back end of that. And so I'm bad about even now. I mean, launching different products and stuff. You want them to be perfect. You want it to be packaged right. I think for us, content is a big deal. So it's like, well, the content has to look a certain way. And I'm very picky. And sometimes you just have to ship it. You just have to get it out there. You have to see what the market says. And if they don't like it, they'll tell you. They're not going to respond, So always fail fast and iterate often. That's an old Michael Palladino Rev Unit thing. It's fail fast, iterate often, because you want to constantly be changing, making sure that you're adapting to what the market wants. And that really, for me, I wish that somebody would have told me that up front of like, make sure you have something to sell before you risk it all. And I say that I took the advice of Jeff Amorine a long time ago, Startup Junkie. They gave me some great advice of really stepping back, making sure before I went full time of like, is this something that you want to do? And making sure you have your ducks in a row. We were debt free essentially. We had paid off $90,000 in debt. We wanted to make sure we had some savings. We wanted to make sure that the team was set up in place before, I did anything full time. And so there was a lot of risk. You talk about risk when I think there's some. I've done some stupid things and taken some stupid risks, but I've also I feel like some good calculated risk as well. And so always making sure to weigh your options. And sometimes you just kind of have to go for it. And sometimes you don't know if it's going to work. And that's part of life. And that's part of what makes this journey fun, interesting.
That is all sage advice. I say that risk, a lot of folks think that entrepreneurs are these super high risk takers, and that's actually not true, at least not for successful entrepreneurs. Successful entrepreneurs are very much calculated risk takers. At least it's been my experience. I love that you brought up the revenue part. Inside of a decade, going back into my consulting practice, I've either coached or advised or mentored over 1,000 entrepreneurs over the period of a decade. And one of my first conversations I always try to have with them is about selling something, getting to revenue. A lot of them spend time celebrating when they raise funding. There's several types of cash. There's friends, families, financiers, fools. The most important one starts with an R, that's revenue. And so many times they're so focused on fundraising and celebrating the fundraise. And to me, fundraising, and I always tell them, they call me and they want to celebrate. I'm like, well, that's great. It doesn't validate anything. I'm trying to pop their bubble. Raising money is not validation at all. It means that somebody somewhere thinks that you might be one of the tiny percentage of people out of their entire portfolio that might be successful at getting your company off the ground and scaling it, and might make them a bunch of money. They're betting on a small fraction of folks, and that's not validation. The only thing that's validation for the business ultimately is whether they could sell something, because if they can't sell anything, nothing else matters. It's just a very expensive hobby. But you said something a moment ago that made me think, maybe we should start a podcast called "Don't Do This Stuff."
Maybe
I've already got 52. The word I'll use, and we can just bring a whole bunch of entrepreneurs on to talk about Yeah, I tell people all the time the same thing. I can tell you a whole bunch not to do. I've got some scars.
That's a great idea, James. We need to find somebody to fund that for us. We could do that.
We need to fund that one, and also want to start a podcast called The Common Joe, which is like you just get normal people, everyday, hardworking, especially blue collar people, and bring them in. Yeah. Bring in the plumber, bring in the electrician, and just talk with them about life and find out how they got to where they are. So I think it would be really a fascinating show. Maybe we've got some more podcasts in the future.
I love that. Well, you know what? We got a place to record them. So just keep them coming.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite projects that Go Rogue gets to work on? And I'm not fishing for the Bentonville Beacon. I really do want to know about your projects.
Yeah, no, we've had some fun ones through the years. I will say that the ones that I love are the consistency. So talking about Bentonville Beacon, it is consistent. And so we know, hey, we can innovate that content. We can create some cool content, as well as just working with honestly people like you, James, that you're intentional about it. I mean, we've talked about it before. You know what you want, you're going after it, and we don't have to pull you along essentially, to get you to do something. Like, you're invested. And so from a support, perspective, we love those types of clients. And so, I would say some of the random, I say it's random. It's not we've gotten to do some fun nonprofit stuff as well. We worked with Walmart Business, and they had highlighted some nonprofits, and that was really cool to see kind of behind the scenes with not just the ones you think of, the ones that are doing some great work out there, and they're all doing some great work, but to hear their stories, to kind of capture some of those stories. And so some projects like that, as well as, these, like I talked about, these brand films, I feel like we're kind of going down that route where you're getting to engage with the founders, of the business. And a lot of these folks have been in business for 30 plus years or whatever it is. And so they're talking about the wisdom that you're getting to sit in the room and listen to some of this stuff. And even with some of our leadership series, we have a client in San Diego that's been in business for 35 years, writing a book, and he just has so much wisdom. So when you're listening to his him answering just a few questions, you're like, man, I'm getting a masterclass in business. And so for us, it's like we get to enjoy, even though the content is for other people, we get to sit here and actually enjoy, soaking up all that wisdom. And but again, we do some random ones. We shot this year the Magical Light Adventure in Fayetteville, the almost 1 million lights or whatever. And it was like they reached out to us through a referral, and I said, well, it's not what we usually do, but so Lane got to fly some drone stuff and do some Christmas light stuff. Nice. I mean, it's just one of those things that it's not our typical go-to, and it's kind of the fringe stuff, but that's usually the stuff that fuels creativity, it fuels our team, and it's different, it's a lot of fun. So
that's cool. I'll tell you about it later, but there's a leader of a local festival that reached out to me. We're gonna have a conversation soon about potentially doing some podcasting at this. It's an outdoor event. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And it would be really fascinating to do that. I'll have to talk with him and see if it's a real thing.
Yeah. That sounds great.
We might have another interesting one-off for you, but includes podcasting.
Yeah.
Speaking of learning from folks and wisdom, I'm sure, on this kind of one-off question, we can glean some wisdom out of the person that you're going to name. If you could go on a road trip with any famous entrepreneur, dead or alive, who would that be, and where would you go?
Oh, where would I go? Oh, James, I love these questions. Again, trying to think through what these things would be. I had a few. So this is a random one. So I was thinking about that. Take a detour here, just a little bit. Is that okay?
Sure. Can I do
totally.
Okay. It's a road trip. Of course.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. I would say Bill Hader, who's an actor, right? He's just an and he's an entrepreneur, has some businesses and stuff, but he's just somebody who seems like a normal person. And again, this may not be interesting at all other than to me, but Bill Hader is one of those guys that I would just love to be in the room with, let alone a road trip, right?
Yeah.
And so if we're taking a road trip, I'm a big waterfall guy. So going to Yosemite, I've never been. And so there would be something in that creative space. And again, just to share the car ride with Bill Hader and then going to Yosemite would be pretty phenomenal. So Take pictures of waterfalls. That's on my, I go through a life plan every year and update, and we do 10 years out from right now, but it was a photography trip. I used to take photography trips quite a bit, been to Iceland and a few other places. And so those are those things that fuel me, as a person, as a creative. And so, again, to have those, I think to have that moment with Bill that'd be pretty interesting.
That would be a lot of fun.
I
like it.
Weird. I know it's weird, man.
No, that's perfect. I love that. We're gonna have to talk about the whole Iceland thing. That's where I want to check out. I want to go to the ice hotel thing. Really,
like the igloos
neat
and stuff,
experience.
Speaking of, Arkansas in general, there's a new Airbnb out on Beaver Lake that has like an observatory, treehouse or something. I just saw that pop up. It's like, again, only here.
Yeah, there's all kinds of cool places here. You can, waterfalls. Just drive out in the Ozarks.
Yes.
Wait for a good rain day or a day after a rain to really get some of them fired up. Yeah. And, a lot of folks don't know it, but even right here in downtown, there's a small waterfall.
I don't know this, James.
Yeah. You have to, I'll tell you, if you go into Slaughter Pen, on some of the trails, I guess it's sort of toward the downtown side of Red Barn, and you go down some of those trails across the street and go down there. There's a little waterfall. But there is a waterfall right in the middle of town.
I need to go take a photo of that and get a print, and we'll put it on the wall up here. So.
Exactly. And of course, lots of great waterfalls just barely north of us in Bella Vista and all around us.
It's gorgeous state.
In those arcs.
Yeah.
If an audience member wants to reach you, get to know more about Go Rogue, know more about your podcast or about you, collaborate with you, how do they do that?
Well, for us in general, GoRogueStudio.com. You can find all kinds of information. The podcast is on there as well. And any information about us, you can contact us if there's a project you're looking at starting or just want to chat through an idea. Would love to talk with you. For me, LinkedIn is my go-to. I love LinkedIn. I love content on LinkedIn and engaging with people on LinkedIn, especially in this business community. It's almost become more of my social media network than anything. And so, LinkedIn is the go-to. So you can find me there, Bryan Fittin. I think I'm the only one. So I was the only one in the corporate world with that name. I saw all my colleagues would have different names, but there was no other Fittin. It's me. So
I'd love to have that. James Bell is not exactly the
true.
Most obscure name in the world. I too love LinkedIn. It's a fantastic tool. There are folks who don't like it, but if you know how to use it, it is by far and away, in my mind, at least for business, it is the best social media network out there, but might be one of the best ones even outside of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I have one last question for you, Bryan.
Yeah.
What's something I should have asked you that I did not ask?
Well, there's an interesting, this is always the two truths and a lie, I guess.
Okay.
I had a lowrider in high school. Oh yeah, man.
I have to know about that.
Yeah. So I had full air ride suspension on a truck. It was a street truck. Sweet. And I was very proud of that. So I don't know why I'm this is what you do, James, like a therapy session. You make me talk about weird, random things, road trips with Bill Hader. And had a lowrider, man. So you didn't ask me that, but maybe you should have asked me
That's great.
Random hobbies.
I should tell you about my first car.
Please do. Yeah.
My dad bought it for me when I was 17.
Yeah.
Now I'm about to age myself. Maybe I'll just won't say what year it was. I was all of 17. He's like, you're not getting a car at 16. I don't know if I trust you with one at 17.
Yeah.
He bought me a $300 car that had a few decades on it. It was a 73 Plymouth Satellite Sebring.
Oh man.
But this thing, the stereo didn't work. The air conditioner didn't work. I think the heat did work. The fabric and the ceiling was coming down. None of the seat belts worked. This thing, it was a great car. I totaled it at 3 times.
See, he knew that.
Yeah, he absolutely knew. One of the times that I totaled it, I skidded on some black ice and ended up in a ditch.
Yeah.
And then one of my classmates came along and ran over the top of my car. So I went to school the next day, and there was a tire track across the top of my car. And people are like, what happened? Like, isn't it obvious? I got ran over.
Literally got ran over. Yeah.
Right. And this guy, Brad Fletcher, who I'd pick up and take to school every day, I don't think he passed algebra because we used his algebra book as the parking brake for the car. Otherwise, it would be in the middle of the parking lot every day. It was
this needs to be a standard question you ask. What was the first car you had? Because everybody has these stories.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Everybody has a first car story.
Absolutely.
I love it. A lowrider, though. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Most people wouldn't have thought that about me, which is
no,
I wouldn't have thought that about me. But it was fun. That. I will say again, that's a later goal of having a classic truck. My dad has an old 72 Chevy that eventually will be mine, but I hope that's a long time away for him. But it's just that custom truck world and classic car world I love. So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, hey, thanks for appearing on the Bentonville Beacon podcast. Your insights and really your experiences illuminate the innovative spirit of the Greater Bentonville Area and Northwest Arkansas. It helps tell the story. And, you have this unique role, I think, here in Bentonville, growing of helping leaders really in the Greater Bentonville Area. And now I love hearing about helping folks with brand content and so on, really getting to know those businesses. I think there's going to be some great ways to help businesses and organizations in this community through those new services. Your journey from I'll call it a deeply experienced sales and business development, made myself some notes here, professional to really an important leader in the creative scene here in Bentonville, does exemplify the diverse and dynamic spirit of Bentonville and the Greater Bentonville Area and its growth. So thank you for everything that you do for this podcast, that your team does this for this podcast, but for the work that you're doing with creators in this community.
Hey, thank you so much. Very kind words, James. I appreciate it. I appreciate just this, what you're doing. This is very interesting. This is a very cool concept. We talked about it before, but having a show and highlighting a lot of this community is important. It's needed. So thank you for what you do.
Yeah,
as well.
I'm going to add to this real quick. Then we were talking about this before the show. Mm-hmm. We're going to come up on a 2-year anniversary soon. We have over 100 episodes under the belt now. It's a weekly podcast. We've dropped some bonus episodes in here and there, and I bet we're pushing, because of some of the shows had multiple guests, I bet we're pushing 150 guests that have shown up on this show. But one of the reasons that we selected Go Rogue is I requested quotes from, 8 or 9 different organizations, all wonderful organizations, some that folks would absolutely know if we said them. But one organization did not just give us a quote, they gave us advice. We were just going to do a handful of videos highlighting a handful of businesses in Bentonville and so on. And so the shelf life of that content probably would have been relatively short. And you said, hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast? And in particular, a video podcast. So, hey, surprise, if you've been listening on a podcast player, there is a video version of this podcast. And I said, no, I haven't thought about that at all. And as we explored that, we realized we could get so much bang for our buck and so much more interesting content that could really live on. And so thank you for giving me advice when I came asking for a quote. That told me a lot about the nature of the relationship, that it wouldn't just be transactional, but that we could really create something together. So I appreciate that. Hey,
thank you so much. I told you it was a risky move. I said, we can give you what you want, but I was like, have you thought about this over here? And no, I appreciate that, James. And that is what I think that's a natural thing. I want people to succeed. I want whatever you were doing, even if you weren't going to work with us, I wanted to see something cool created out of your idea. And so I'm very happy, though, that you chose us, because this has been fun. It's been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, big thank you to our Bentonville Beacon audience for tuning in once again. Your engagement and support make this show possible. If you enjoyed this episode, please, of course, share it with your colleagues, your friends, and anyone else interested in the stories that define our thriving community. And for those who've joined us via the via BentonvilleBeacon.com, don't forget to explore our newly updated website and share your thoughts on the changes with us and sign up for the updates there. And if you are listening through your favorite podcast app, then remember to hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest episodes. Keep enjoying us. Keep joining us. You can enjoy us too, but keep joining us to hear more from the entrepreneurs, the business executives, and community leaders who are sparking the rise of the Greater Bentonville and Northwest Arkansas region, a place where innovation meets opportunity and a place where you get more of what you want and less of what you don't. Until next time, keep fostering the connections and creativity in your own journeys.